So Dean Coda Kimball, graduates, faculty, and friends, first words out of my mouth need to be congratulations. And thank you to the Dean and all of the school's faculty who bring such pride to the university and who care so deeply about education. I'm also so privileged to share this day with all of your family and your friends who share in the accomplishment of all the graduates. Now let me start by first telling you that this is the first commencement speech I've ever given. But I don't want you to worry that you've got a rookie on your hands. I did my homework. Like any good chancellor would do, I Googled commencement speech. So I reviewed prior addresses and quotes to spur my own thinking. So let me start with one of the better quotes I found from Gary Trudeau of Doonesbury fame. Commencement speeches were invented largely in the belief that outgoing college students should never be released into the world until they have been properly sedated. Graduates, suffice it to say, one of my goals this morning is to avoid sedating you. My intention today is not only to congratulate you, although you are definitely worthy of congratulations for all the hard work you've put in. I want to challenge you and maybe even inspire you to ask yourself, how can I make a difference in the world? Now that you have achieved a measure of success with your very prestigious degree from UCSF School of Pharmacy, how would you like to bring what you've learned into the next phase of your lives? I want to share 3 stories with you from my life to illustrate some of the lessons I've learned along the way. Now, my first story relates to the experience I had as a UCSF faculty member sent off to East Africa with my husband to study heterosexual transmission of HIV and a malignancy associated with HIV, Kaposi sarcoma. Now you can imagine, as a UCSF trained internist and oncologist, my expectation was that I would contribute technically. I knew a lot about medicine and oncology. But I sorely underestimated how much the experience would actually impact me. Waking up every day to a country where the children couldn't have clean water, no electricity, no school fees for their education, thousands of orphans as a result of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. I had no idea that the rest of the world lived like this. Now, like all of you, I could get caught up in daily life, thinking about the life as a healthcare professional or a researcher, the next degree, the next award, the next grant, the next publication or accomplishment. But in fact, the lesson for me, and I hope a lesson for all of you, is the real question is, how will I use my skills and experiences to help lessen human pain and suffering? What am I going to do? Graduates, your opportunity, having acquired the skills and knowledge to be part of the esteemed class of 2010, is to use those skills and knowledge to give back, to remember that the very best measure of your achievements will be improvements in human health. The second story came later in my career, and Marianne talked about me going to Bristol Myers Squibb. What she didn't tell you is that after returning from Uganda, I was a practicing oncologist in a community hospital in Kentucky, where my husband's from, spending 100% of my time on patient care. When my husband was recruited to the large pharmaceutical company Bristol Myers Squibb to work on their new anti-HIV/AIDS drug, I followed him as a trailing spouse. And it was very clear that the very esteemed oncology group at BMS wasn't quite sure what to do with this LMD, this community doctor, that they had inherited in order to attract Nick, my husband. You can imagine it was a little disconcerting to be the low woman on the totem pole, working on the team that had just gotten the first approval for a new cancer drug called Taxol, initially for ovarian cancer. I was assigned to the role of monitoring the safety of this new drug. Now looking back, I realized that this was almost certainly the least glamorous job they had at the company. They thought I wouldn't cause any trouble there, I imagine. But I enjoyed every minute of it. I had the opportunity to use my clinical skills, biostatistical and epidemiologic training, and knowledge of medicine. At one point, I remember talking to one of the SAS programmers who didn't realize I had learned SAS programming in Uganda, because I didn't have a statistician. His surprise that I actually knew what I was doing was somewhat shocking. But I quickly became the project team leader for the Taxol team, and when I left the company, the drug was one of its top products. It went really well. The most important thing, though, wasn't that I had disproven their skepticism. The best thing was that we were able to demonstrate, first in the US and then in Europe, that in fact, this drug, Taxol, was safe and effective for patients with breast cancer. Best of all, I loved the work. I loved going to work every day. I encourage each of you, class of 2010, find your passion. Find what you're good at. Find what you love to do. Find that role that allows you to take those things that you love to do and to see how much it can matter for patients. So I have a third story I wanted to tell you, and this one is about working on one of the first targeted therapies for cancer, Herceptin. I hope when you were listening to that introduction, you didn't think, boy, she caused me a lot of trouble in class because I had to learn all about all those drugs. But maybe some of you were. So I know you learned about antibodies, right? So antibodies were previously thought to be magic bullets for cancer, but they had fallen out of favor. And in 1995, when I moved from Bristol Myers Squibb to Genentech, some of my friends said, you know, those folks are those crazy people working on monoclonal antibodies. There was enormous skepticism about using targeted therapy to treat cancer. After years of difficult efforts, many times I myself thought it was impossible to do the right trial and get an answer. But in 1998, we finally completed the pivotal trial. I remember the day like it was yesterday. The overwhelming recognition that we would be able to help thousands of patients with the most difficult form of breast cancer was so exciting to me. It was clear that the direction of cancer therapy to personalized, biomarker-driven therapy had fundamentally changed. The headline said that we had rewritten the medical textbooks. But the big news for me was something much more simple. I knew that the discussions that I had had as an oncologist, I'm really sorry, you have in fact the scariest form of breast cancer, and worrying with the patient, that those discussions could now change to, I'm really sorry that you have the scariest form of breast cancer, but now we have something for that. That's magic. You will likely forget this commencement speech, but you will always remember the patient you were trying to help. Graduates, dare to take risks. Try something audacious when the impact can be so great and the need for better outcomes for patients remains so large. My experiences make me confident that our ability to deliver safer and more effective medications will dramatically change for the better during your careers. Keep challenging yourself and your colleagues to ask how to make medicines better for the patients who are waiting. So what about you? Enough about me. What will your stories be? You graduated at a time of great challenge in our country. Our nation is intensely worried about healthcare and about access to safe and effective medicines. And in healthcare, it can often feel that the level of discourse is really challenged. We've all seen the town halls with yelling citizens, mad about healthcare, angry about what we've got in this nation. I actually feel like I could relate this to a quote from Homer Simpson. Can't someone else do it? But I'm not worried. I'm very optimistic about the future. So here's what I know. I know you're 120 individuals who graduate today having been chosen among 1,250 applicants to attend the top-ranked pharmacy school in the nation, #1 in NIH funding for 30 years. You're the cream of the crop. Your School of Pharmacy education has exposed you to expertise in key areas that are shaping the future of pharmacy: bioengineering, pharmacogenomics, bioinformatics, regulatory science, pharmaceutical chemistry, and more. Your clinical training's been interdisciplinary, positioning the pharmacist as a therapeutic expert who is a critical member of the healthcare team. In fact, it's a perfect time for all of you to take the lead with the challenges and opportunities in healthcare today. The world needs you. We need your talent, your training, your compassion, and your ideas. No matter what career you decide to pursue, clinical, research, teaching, in the public sector or the private sector, you could actually do worse than take some advice that I'll give to you from my dad. So as Mary Ann said, I'm one of you. I'm a pharmacist kid. My passion for clinical care grew out of my experiences working in my dad's drugstore in Reno, Nevada. So I have to tell you a couple stories. One is about eating dinner with my mom and dad and my brother and my nephew last night, talking about today. Of course, we were reminiscing about pharmacy school. My brother says, you know what we called therapeutics class when I went to pharmacy school? We actually called the therapeutics class Coda Kimball. Now, I knew that this year was the year of Coda Kimball, but I had no idea that this was one of many years that are the year of Coda Kimball. So I share that with you. I couldn't believe it, Mary Ann. You're even more famous than I knew. So my brother worked as a delivery boy. I was the bookkeeper, and there were 7 kids in the family, so we all had jobs. And I want to end my remarks with 3 things that my dad always told me. The first one is, put Neosporin on it, it'll probably be fine. You can imagine in a family with 7 kids, there were scrapes and dings and probably broken bones, and Neosporin always seemed to be fine. Number 2, remember delivery boys and bookkeepers? We got some real insight into values in that drugstore. People cannot always afford medicine, but they need it. So you have to figure out a way to get it to them. That's what my dad always said. And the third thing that my dad always said that I wanted to share with you is, in the end, do the right thing. So graduates, in the words of my dad, 50 years a pharmacist, do the right thing. Make a difference. I, for one, cannot wait to see you do it. Thank you and congratulations. Bravo.